The average millionaire has 7 streams of income. That's one of the first lessons I learned back in college as a finance major. Dr. Gamble, shout out to you, wherever you are, gave us this lesson to let us know that in order to achieve success in this world, this is how you are going to have to broaden your horizons.
Hey, tell me more.
I'm CJ, writer, author, podcaster, coach, and consultant. And I'm here to work with you on how to be the best version of yourself, the best leader that you can be, and ultimately help fix some of those intergenerational workplace dynamics you might be experiencing. Why is it important that I start with the story about millionaires having 7 streams of income? Because today, for Gen Z in particular, and millennials, shout out to us, this isn't an option. It's almost mandatory. And Gen Z is kind of leading the way in many regards through side hustles and different projects to help make up for the gap that exists in what their work and, honestly, income prospects look like these days. In 2022, everybody got really loud about quiet quitting. This was a story that dominated the news headlines. Quiet quitting, simply explained, is people were doing their jobs. They weren't going above and beyond. They weren't doing extra. They were simply showing up, clocking in, clocking out, and that was it. But the trend has passed. Everybody was up in a tizzy and a fuss over it. They were calling workers lazy. They were coming down on them. They were not recognizing the kind of place and position that people had found themselves in to make quiet quitting such a viable option. But the market has changed. Trends have changed. Now faced with prolonged unemployment, Gen Z is no longer quiet quitting. Instead, they're going about it another way. Through freelancing, through side projects, through side hustles, through influencing, they are thinking of different ways in which to supplement their income while also just surviving a job that they may not enjoy or find purpose and fulfillment in. Back when I was in college and I was told the average millionaire had 7 streams of income, the truth is, it was optional. You didn't need 7 streams of income to survive. This was indicative of people who were going above and beyond, who had a sort of hustle mentality, who knew how to make their money work for them. Today, 7 streams isn't a luxury, it's almost mandatory. We live in a time and place where working a minimum wage job can get you an apartment anywhere in this country. With the rising cost of everything and student loan debt being what it is and credit card debt being what it is. And I'm not one of those people who's gonna fault others for having credit card debt and call them irresponsible, because with the rising cost of everything, sometimes you do need to turn to the credit card to buy groceries or to make a payment. So for those people out there who call themselves gurus coming down on everyone, I want you for just a moment to exercise maybe just a little bit of empathy and recognize that things are not the way they were when you were younger, or everyone is not in your position to be able to make what you deem to be the smartest and wisest financial decisions. If we want to help people, we need to meet them where they are. So 20 years ago, surviving on a single income, maybe a single income in your retirement portfolio was enough. But now Gen Z feels like they need 7 streams. This isn't optional for them. And so they're pursuing those 7 streams through a bunch of different ways. Digital platforms and content creation and freelancing and setting up micro businesses and e-commerce, and a very big one for Gen Z is crypto. I look at this, and as I say, Gen Z, they are the spiritual successors to millennials. They're not that far off from us. Millennials, we were doing Forex trading and drop shipping, and there was the myriad of pyramid schemes. Let me not call them schemes for legal reasons, but how many of us sat in on Primerica presentations, or who participated in the whole "you should be here" thing, We were all doing the same thing. We were just trying to figure out how to make a little bit more money to make ends meet so that we can survive in this place. Gen Z feels like they're not left with much of a choice. Millennials feel like they're not left with much of a choice. And what boomers need to recognize is that the conditions that existed in which they achieved the bulk of their prosperity are no longer here. And so when they speak as though we're all operating in the same playing field, they don't understand why their advice and trite comments just fall on deaf ears. But here's the truth. Even if the economy was great, even if all things were perfect, Gen Z by and large exhibits a level of creativity and desire for freedom that just gives them this itch to want to go and explore. This is a generation whose lives are not defined by what they do. This is a generation that refuses to sit in places that are not diverse and places that are toxic and places that do not show them proper value. And so they search and they figure out, where can I go? What can I do? Where can I experience the most, not just creative flourishing, but a kind of soul flourishing that many of us hope to achieve in the work that we do. So as a leader of Gen Z, a manager, an employer, what does this mean for you? It means you have an opportunity. If you want to keep your Gen Z talent, my advice to you is going to be not to fight their side hustles, but embrace them. Embrace them. Invest in them. Mentor them. Find pathways within your organization for their development and for their growth and for their exploration and curiosity. Because the thing is, if they're not getting those spaces and places within the organization, then they're going to find them outside. So practically, here's 3 things you can do. The first is be flexible. The current state of work has moved away from the 5 days, everyone in the office, 9 to 5. There are certainly places that still do that, but work at present and future is going to be hybrid. So how can you give people the autonomy and space to do their thing while also doing yours? You can say to them, hey, this is your job. We pay you. We have expectations. But trust them to be the adults that you hired them as and let them do their jobs. Tell them what you need, when you need it by, and that's it. Don't worry about what they're doing in their off time. I think it's 168 hours in a week. Only 40 of those, ideally 40, go to work anyway. Don't police the other 120. Work within the boundary. Give them boundaries to work in and let it rip. The second is entrepreneurship. See, this concept of entrepreneurship is allowing employees to build things outside of maybe the scope of their job to work on projects within the company. There are companies that are already on the forefront of this. Google has the 20% project, where 20% of an employee's time can go to an outside project, to something out of the scope of their general area that they are curious about and just want to work on. LinkedIn has a similar thing that they do as well. If you are a smaller company and you are trying to compete, hang this out as an incentive. Say, hey, we're going to give you space to build, space to work, space to, figure some things out on your own. People will appreciate that. They'll be excited by that. But also, if you're smart, they're building it within your company. You retain the rights to it. Who knows what new streams of revenue can be produced for you? Who knows what innovations can come out of this for you? This requires you to have a bit of a learning focus, to be willing to experience exploration within the organization rather than exploitation, which is a concept we're going to come to in a couple of weeks. Exploration versus exploitation, and having a learning focus versus an execution focus. So put that in the back of your mind because it's coming up soon. But ultimately, it's saying be an organization that is curious and willing to learn. And that includes from your employees. Now, that last thing that you can do is skill sharing, mentorship. Gen Z is asking to be poured into. They're asking for mentors, for people to take them under their wing and show them the way. Gen Z, for better or worse, they are a generation that in many ways gets stuck. And they don't know if they can make a move or do the thing without having all of their questions answered. And in reality, I think there's something innately human about that. We want to learn from those who have come before us. Now, Gen Z might have the issue of needing too many questions answered, but that's not always a bad thing. Set them up with older employees who've been around longer, who've seen a bit more, and let them work in tandem with each other so that your Gen Z employees can grow in skill, grow in knowledge, and ultimately become even better at contributing to your organization. I once had a mentor say to me, CJ, you're going to get to the place in life where if you are not being fulfilled at work, where if your gifts, skills, talents, and abilities are not being put to use, you're going to go find a place to do it. And you might still stay at that job, but all of your time outside of it, or a good portion of it, is going to be spent building the thing that you actually want to do. What most employers fail to recognize is those side hustles and side projects are often adjacent to the work that they do for you. But for some reason, your people feel like they can't express that portion of themselves at work, so they're just finding a place to do it. Side hustles and side projects are not a threat. If anything, they're broadening the scope and horizon of who your employees are, of who they want to be. Why would you want to squash that? Why would you want to keep them as the most truncated version of themselves? If you want to be the most cynical about this, let's say you have an employee who has a side hustle takes off, ultimately maybe gets sold to a bigger company for, let's call it tens of millions of dollars. Do you know what you have on your hands? Not an employee that you lost. You have notable alumni. And if you maintain good relationships with them, then you can say, hey, this person over there built this thing that achieved this amount of success, and if you come work for us, you can too. Now, that's the most selfish way to think about it, I know. But what might be sitting inside of your employees? What might they have in them that could be of great benefit to your organization that you're missing out on? Because you haven't broadened your aperture to see not just all that they can be, but all that you can be, all that your organization can be. So partner with your Gen Z employees. Support them, invest in them, build with them, because that's what they're doing. Gen Z is not quiet quitting anymore. The economy's too rough for that, but they're building. And they might be building something great. They might be building something that could be useful for you and your team. But in the end, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that we allow people the space to flourish. Now, I know you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, CJ, I don't want to hear all that because they have a job and I just need them to do their job. And I'm not giving up 20% of their time so they can go play around on some project. Cool. Let me know how that works out for you, because the mass exodus is coming. The economy is going to improve. And when the conditions are better, people will remember how you treated them in the low times. And that'll have a big impact on your retention and your reputation. But what do I know? I'm just some guy from Brooklyn.